What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another review. This time we're taking a look at Gerald's Game, directed by Mike Flanagan and co-written by Mike Flanagan. Gerald's Game is an adaptation of the Stephen King novel of the same name, and this movie stars Carla Gugino and Bruce Greenwood. Simple premise: this couple named Jess and Gerald go on a romantic getaway. In the middle of a kicky sex game, Gerald dies of a heart attack while his wife is handcuffed to the bedpost. And while the wife's in dire straits with no rescue in sight, she starts to come to terms with her inner demons, her inner insecurities, and just inner everything. She kind of spills her guts to herself, coming to terms with herself. So you're wondering, how does this make for an interesting movie? Well, it takes a very good director, strong writing, and a great performance by Carla Gugino to make Gerald's Game a very intriguing and just can't take your eyes off horror thriller. Carla Gugino as the character of Jess puts on an outstanding performance. She anchors this entire movie. And personally speaking, if it was any other actress, I don't think it would have worked because she brings that right amount of realism to the role of Jess. She also brings that right amount of just dire straits, horrific, and horrific hysteria, I guess, to the role of Jess as somebody who is pretty much confined to a bedpost, handcuffed, has no way to communicate or get herself any help, while all the while she has to confront her inner demons that have plagued her since she was a kid. And like I said, Carla Gugino puts on a fantastic role. She is great in the movie, but she's also backed by a very strong supporting cast that includes Bruce Greenwood, who plays the husband Gerald, and Henry Thomas, who plays her abusive father, who who, as we find out through flashbacks, had sexually assaulted Jess when she was 12 years old. And Jess comes to terms with this while in her predicament, because her current predicament kind of parallels the abusive relationship she had with her father. And I think from a performance wise, Henry Thomas really gives a very just skin crawling performance as the father. Like, he really gives the impression of this pedophilic son of a bitch, and I think he was great in the role. And I also think that Bruce Greenwood is good in the role of Gerald. Now, we don't get to spend too much time with Gerald, but we know enough about the marriage that there's something wrong between these two. Their marriage is kind of broken. So in a way to kind of spice things up, Gerald wants to do some kinky stuff. And of course, all the while, he suffers a heart attack. And pretty much Gerald kind of returns in Jess's mind as a hallucination, and Jess also projects another image of herself. So it's kind of like the devil and the angel on Jess's shoulder, kind of like bickering back and forth, and pretty much giving her some mind games. And while all the while, she's kind of like it's kind of like a therapy session for Jess, because she's able to just unleash a lot of things that were hidden within inside of her, coming to terms with an abusive past, coming to terms with a failing marriage. While all the while, there is this subplot of this character called the Moonlight Man, who breaks into houses and just steals trinkets here and there. And there's also this subplot of this stray dog that we see throughout the movie that is picking at the corpse of Gerald. So this movie has a lot going on with it, and I think Mike Flanagan as a whole did a great job at balancing out this movie. This is a tightly directed and beautifully written movie. It's a movie of a woman coming to terms with just her past. It's kind of like Dolores Claiborne in a way. It's very similar in terms of like thematic structure, and I appreciate that. I think Gerald's Game is a damn good movie as well. Like I said, I think Mike Flanagan did a fantastic job directing this thing. This is a beautiful looking movie from a cinematography standpoint. It has a lot of just gorgeous shots, particularly the shot of this eclipse, and you get like the red skyline. While it's just a beautiful looking shot, and the dream sequences are very real, and they're kind of scary as well, just scary as well. And I also like the look of the Moonlight Man character. He has this very just physically imposing, misshapen look. And Moonlight Man is actually played by Lurch from the 1990s Addams Family movies. So that's also pretty cool as well. But this movie is based solely on its story, and it's based solely on Carla Gugino's strong and just realistic performance that she gives this movie. And this movie, it has a lot of suspense to it, but it does have some really like squirm type of moments, like when Like when Kajino, like when Jess is finally trying to release herself from the handcuffs, she realizes what she has to do. And going back to something that happened in her childhood, where she slit her wrist because of the abuse she was facing, she had to do just that in her adult life and used kind of like use the blood as oil to kind of slip out of the handcuffs. Now, her hand ends up suffering some severe nerve damage because the scene is actually really gruesome, and we actually see the flesh of her hand kind of get almost taken off as she's trying to slip out of the handcuffs. It's actually a squirming scene, and it's the only real scene in this movie where you're actually squirming in your seat because Mike Flanagan directs it with such precision and with such realism that you actually think Carla Gugino is really destroying her hand. And again, it has a lot to do with the performance and the directing, which is all rock solid. So yeah, I don't really have a whole lot of bad to say about this movie because I actually like this movie a lot, and I consider this to be one of the best in the elite of Stephen King adaptations. And I'm giving it a perfect 10. I think this movie is absolutely excellent. So anyway, those are my quick thoughts on Gerald's Game. Let me know yours in the comment sections down below. Like the video and subscribe, and I'll check you back next time for more.